This video is all about why I am grateful for my trauma. Hi, I'm Erin, and I channel God. So we have all had trauma in our lives, especially as children and even as adults. Trauma can be defined as things that happen to you that you didn't want to happen to you. And it feels upsetting, it hurts, it makes you angry, sad, depressed. These are all trauma, and trauma comes in so many forms that you couldn't possibly quantify it all. Some of it sticks with us more than other aspects of it. Often what happens is we don't know how to process the trauma when it's happening to us, especially when we're children. And even when we're adults, when we haven't learned the spiritual tools to move through it, we're like, I don't know, I'm going to go scroll my phone, turn on the TV, go to a movie. I'm going to do something so that I don't have to feel these emotions in my body. The first thing I want to say about trauma is 1000% it's not a contest. It's not a situation where some people have had XYZ trauma, which means that's much worse than the people that have had ABC trauma. That's not what's going on. We all have trauma that's in line with our soul's mission here on earth that's going to give us opportunities to learn and grow and expand into our full potential and power. Okay, so if we are sitting in a place where we feel like my trauma is worse than everyone else's, or we're sitting in a place where we feel like my trauma isn't nearly as bad as everyone else's, I don't even think I should call it trauma. Wherever we are on that scale, it's not really very healthy. What we instead want to acknowledge is that we all have experienced trauma. And that something that all humans should know is how to move through that trauma. So I'm going to describe a little bit of the trauma that I experienced as a child and as an adult. And it's not to say, oh, this is worse than what you've experienced. It very well might not be. What you've experienced very well might be even worse than what I experienced. But that has very little to do with anything because we're all having our own individual experiences here on earth. And our experiences are very important both to our own soul's mission and to the universe's expansion. So it's not a contest, okay? It's not a contest. The other thing is, don't feel shame. If you do feel shame around wanting to work on yourself when you feel like other people have experienced worse things, or another really common thing that I see is you want to do inner work on yourself, but you feel like that's selfish because there's people starving in the world, there's people experiencing war, there's people experiencing all these things. So why should you spend any time working on yourself? Isn't that selfish? Well, the only way that we change the world is by starting with changing ourselves internally, starting with doing the inner work and the healing internally, because the outside world is actually a reflection of our internal world. So healing trauma and learning the tools to move through trauma in the moment and also past trauma that's still coming up for you. That is some of the deepest service that you can be both to yourself, to your family, to your friends, to the community who will start to benefit from someone who is more whole, and to the world at large. So it's not selfish, okay, at all. So for me, I mean, trauma is, there's so much. And unfortunately, most parents do not have the tools, although I believe this is changing. Most parents do not have the tools to teach their children how to move through their own trauma. If you can imagine being born as a perfect little baby, a reflection of God's source, the universe, and you come to earth to parents who hopefully love you and want the best for you, but they aren't perfect themselves and they've had all sorts of trauma and they don't know how to raise a baby that is a perfect reflection of God's source, the universe. And so they often do their best. And their best often results in their precious baby experiencing all kinds of trauma. And a big thing I'm thinking of here, and this is something that as a mother, I'm not perfect on at all, but I do try. So that's something, right? So a big trauma source for people is when they are very young, they're adjusting to being physical. And so when they don't get their way, again, they're coming straight from God's source, the universe, because we are all God. When they don't get their way, they cry. They have tantrums. They don't know how to handle it. When they aren't experiencing their mother's arms around them and they want to experience that, they cry, they have tantrums. They don't know how to exist without instantly receiving the things that they want. They don't know how to exist in the physical world yet. And for parents who have things to do, they have to work, they have to make food, they have to go to the bathroom a few times a day, they need to sleep. This can be a lot. And as that child grows up, it can just transition in the way that it's a lot. And what ends up happening is parents don't know how to hold space for the child having a tantrum, screaming, being upset. So instead of holding space, holding the child, or just sitting with the child and saying, I understand these emotions that you're experiencing are like a storm passing through. You are not your emotions. They're just something you're experiencing. And I'll sit here quietly with you until they've passed. Instead, we have parents that say, if you're screaming, it must mean I'm not doing good enough. And that feels bad to me. And I don't want to experience that anymore. I need you to stop screaming so that I can feel relaxed. I can feel better about myself. I can feel like everything's okay. This makes me feel panic. It makes my nervous system race and I don't know how to handle it. Stop crying. And it often results in yelling at the child, telling the child things like big kids don't cry, that it's not okay to be angry. If you're yelling, you're bad. Only bad kids yell, right? And this results in children that stuff their emotions deep down inside and pretend that they don't exist. And this is trauma. Now, it can also extend to things like hitting children, doing violence against children, right? So many things can happen here because adults haven't healed themselves yet, okay? So that's one example of trauma. Now, as we get older and we're exposed to more people who have also, even other children who are also experiencing trauma, all of these people need an outlet for their trauma because they've been stuffing it down. And so it sneaks out. When you're at school, the other kids call you names. They might have fights on the playground, right? The teachers might categorize some kids as the good kids and some kids as the bad kids. And they take out their anger on the bad kids, the anger that they don't know how to process themselves, and so on and so forth. And as we grow up, most people still don't know how to deal with their trauma and their emotions. And so they continue talking about other people, getting angry at other people, and it becomes this mess in their head of these emotions swimming around that they're just looking to discharge, right? Now, I experienced trauma just like everybody who's watching this video has experienced trauma. And I'm so grateful for those experiences because I learned how to heal. My trauma was actually the gateway to my power. My trauma was the gateway to me understanding what I'm actually supposed to be here doing on earth, my life purpose, my soul mission. If I was born into a world where I was completely perfect and the world around me was completely perfect, that sounds really relaxing. It sounds beautiful. I love it. But in reality, that's a world that doesn't actually need my presence. If everything's perfect, then I don't have a purpose. The imperfections in this world give us purpose, or at least have the potentiality to give us purpose. Now, you are more powerful than you've ever imagined. And understanding your trauma, accepting and recognizing and acknowledging your trauma is the gateway to your power. I have healed so much trauma in myself, in my clients, in my students, and also in strangers that I connect with within my mind, universal mind, the quantum field, infinite intelligence. That's what I do. I'm a healer. You're here to acknowledge your trauma, recognize your trauma, understand how to heal it, and change the world. You are just so much more powerful than you have any idea about. For me, for those of you who don't know, I was bullied horribly all throughout school, starting in 3rd grade when a boy called me, my last name was Egnatz at the time before I was married, Erin Egg Snatcher instead of Erin Egnatz. And I remember I got so red. And I said, well, I didn't know there was anything wrong with my last name. And I hung my head. And after that, I knew there was something horribly wrong with my last name. And I felt so embarrassed every day. And all the kids noticed that. They saw that weakness in me. And they all started attacking me every single day, all throughout every single class, every single day. There were kids whispering. Well, the teacher was up at the front talking, kids whispering all these nasty, horrible things to me. It was difficult. It went all the way through when I graduated high school, and I had no idea what to do about it. I didn't have the tools that I have now. And it used to be really difficult for me to go to school. I was terrified. I was so afraid. And I spent most of my childhood and teenage years absolutely miserable. And I really credit my mother and thank her so much for always repeating the phrase to me that things always get better. Because without that phrase, I might not still be alive, quite honestly. That's how seriously I was affected as a child and a young adult. So things always get better, and I always told that to myself. Even though I didn't necessarily see the evidence of that, things always get better. And I trusted her because she said it with conviction. So I have gone back and I have gone to some of the bigger instances with, boys 3 times their size whispering in my ear for 50 minutes straight during homeroom every single day, the nastiest, most awful words. I've gone back to those instances. I've healed them. I've brought light to them. And the power that's given me, but not only power, the peace of mind, the inner peace from taking a situation that I still woke up with nightmares around when I was 25, 35 years old. And bringing light to it, bringing forgiveness, bringing healing, and seeing, in fact, that boy who did that to me every single day for 15 years, that he was experiencing extreme trauma himself, and it was the only way he could release it was to find someone to unleash it on. So my trauma has allowed me to step into my power, and I see with everyone I work with, in my classes, my courses that I work one-on-one with, I see that their trauma, talking about it, mentioning it, even acknowledging that it exists, it allows us to bring this deep, profound healing. You know, we all want to be channels for the divine. But the truth of the matter is, we have so many memories, traumas that want to be healed, rattling around in our heads. And until we start moving some of that trauma out, there's no space and room for the divine to drop in for us. It's there. It's always there. The divine's always in our head, in our body. We can't not be divine because we are. But the truth is that to hear it, to feel it, to know it in your body, you have to move some of those old stored emotions in the form of trauma out to make the space and the quiet to hear. And there's so many beautiful modalities that bring healing of your trauma and your trapped stored emotions through for you. Meditation, the energy work that I teach, yoga, a quiet walk outside every single day, walking barefoot in the grass, anywhere where you're creating quiet allows some of those traumas to begin the healing process. But if you want to heal traumas very, very quickly, you need to be doing it with intention, which is what I teach with my light work. My new book, Lightworkers 101, is coming out within a few weeks. It's almost ready to go, which I'm so excited about. And that teaches you definitely the beginning steps to deep healing very, very quickly. Because the truth of the matter is, traditional medicine and therapists will have you believe it takes years, 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years of showing up at the therapist's office, 2-3 times a week to do deep healing. But that's not true at all. You can do deep healing in a half hour and move a memory that's been bothering you, plaguing you for 30 years out of your body, out of your mind, and out of your energy field in a half hour. That's what's actually possible and available to us because of who we really are. We are God, we are source, we are the universe. We are not small, we are not powerless. We are more powerful than we've ever imagined. Sending each and every one of you so much love. Goodbye, my beautiful friends. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on my daily videos.